An upmarket interior, some advanced engine technology and a host of technological innovations make the 6th generation Volkswagen Golf a formidable presence in the family hatch sector. Retaining the best bits of the outgoing model, it moves the Golf game on yet again. If you're not familiar with Volkswagen Golf history, here's a quick recap. The original version was launched 28 million sales ago in 1974, where it basically established the formula for the modern family hatchback and perfected it further with 2nd and 3rd generation versions. Come 1998, Volkswagen launched a Mark IV model that set a brand new quality standard for the sector, a standard even today some rivals struggle to better. In 2004, we had the Mark V Golf, which featured handling perfected by the talented engineers who developed the Ford Focus. In focusing on driving dynamics, Volkswagen took their eye off the ball a little in terms of perceived quality, allowing rivals to catch up. Now, this Mk6 model must re-establish Wolfsburg's lead in that respect to justify premium pricing. And that's a tough ask, especially given the need for a more modern range of engines and higher tech gadgetry. How does it fare? Let's find out. Now, talk to anyone at Volkswagen about this car and one word keeps cropping up: refinement. The engineers have really thrown the kitchen sink at this design to ensure for this. You've got new door seals, engine mounts, sound deadening around the A-pillars and the front bulkhead, quiet tyres, even extra thick glass with sound deadening film sandwiched in between it. Now, the result is a car so quiet that sometimes you have to concentrate on the engine to really hear what it's doing. Anyone downsizing to a Golf from a much larger car should be very pleasantly surprised. The ride is unusually good too, something you can fiddle with if you go for the optional ACC adaptive chassis control system. Now here you've got a setup that alters the settings of the suspension, the throttle and the steering over any given journey, and you can set it on either normal, comfort or sport modes. Now, it's not fitted to this car, and I'm not surprised. The setup of the basic Golf is so good that you wouldn't really necessarily need it. And anyway, the Golf isn't really targeted in its more mundane forms at drivers who really want to throw the car around country roads. Much better if you've got extra money to spend to go for the automatic distance control system that uses the radar to control your distance to the car in front. I also like Park Assist. That's a system that, as you drive along, measures a potential parking space out for you and then guides you in with the steering so that you only have to manipulate the accelerator, the brake and the clutch. Is all of this just a smokescreen to distract us from the fact that this Golf rides on exactly the same platform as its predecessor? Well, if it is, it's just as well that the Mark V model had such a huge step forward in terms of its road manners, thanks to the sophisticated rear suspension setup and the electric assisted power steering system that it enjoyed. Now, though they both feel as good as ever in this car. For Volkswagen, a much greater priority than fiddling with any of this was the need to replace the noisy old unit injected diesels that the old car had with a much more up-to-date common rail diesel arrangement. And that's had a big impact on refinement. Yes, we're back to that. Petrol buyers, who rightly see the entry-level 1.4 and 1.6 litre engines as being rather old hat, get the choice of 122 or 160 PS outputs in a very sophisticated 1.4 litre TSI unit that features supercharging and turbocharging. Now, whichever engine you choose, it'll be marshalled parallel go to the front wheels via a 6-speed manual gearbox, but there's also the option of a 7-speed DSG twin-clutch semi-automatic transmission. Now, a Golf has, above all things, to look like a Golf, and this one does, although at the cost of some accusations of conservatism. Now, the fact that the platform, the door and windscreen apertures, the roof panel and the engine range have all been carried over pretty much unchanged from the last generation version means that the dimensions are essentially the same, leading some to assume this to be merely a facelift of the previous version rather than an all-new model. Look closer, however, and the differences become more apparent. This Mk6 Golf is lower, wider and slightly shorter, and these changes, along with the Sirocco Coupe's smart sharky nose, give it a more purposeful air. At the back, the huge tail light clusters are similar in shape to the headlamps and curve around the rear wings to visually widen the car. Inside, it's also subtly different, and it all feels much plusher. You've got quality soft touch plastics everywhere. The instruments that used to glow blue at night now illuminate white, and almost every available knob and dial has its own chrome border. As you'd expect, the cabin feels spacious and there's plenty of interior stowage space. Now, as far as boot room's concerned, you get 350 litres with all the seats in place, and if you go for this optional ski hatch, you can accommodate awkward loads. Of course, you can fold down the split fold rear bench with 60/40 and increase your luggage area to 1,305 litres. The only slight issue is that the backrest just flops down onto the seat, so you don't get a completely flat loading bay. Now, airbags, there are 5 for those at the front and curtain airbags for front and rear passengers. Prices for mainstream variants lie in the £13,000 to £20,000 bracket. That sounds quite reasonable, but you need to bear in mind that the more modern petrol and diesel engine variants that most customers will actually want tend to start at about the £15,000 mark. Now, Volkswagen Golf pricing and market positioning tends to put the car somewhere in between mainstream family hatchbacks like Ford's Focus or Vauxhall's Astra, and premium hatchbacks like BMW's 1 Series or Audi's A3. At entry level, there's a choice of 80 PS 1.4 or 102 PS 1.6 litre petrol power, but these are old engines and not very eco-friendly. Better, if you can, to stretch to the 1.4 litre TSI petrol units. They develop 122 or 160 PS, courtesy of a turbocharged, supercharged arrangement, which is very smooth and impressive. You can also go for a diesel, of course. This is a 2 litre TDI common rail diesel, new to this car, that develops either a 110 PS, as in this case, or 140 PS in the mainstream variants that most people choose. You can also talk to your dealership about the sporty GTI model, based around the impressive 2 litre TFSI petrol unit. All models get ABS and ESP, that's the electronic stabilisation program. You also have 7 airbags, body colour for the bumpers and the door handles, climatic air conditioning, electrically operated and heated door mirrors, remote central locking, and a CD stereo. Now, it's a mark of the age of the entry-level 80 PS 1.4 litre petrol unit that an engine twice as powerful, the 160 PS 1.4 litre TSI engine that's further up the range, it can put out fewer CO2 emissions, 145 as opposed to 149 grams per kilometre of CO2. Yet the two engines record pretty much identical combined fuel economy figures of 45 miles to the gallon. Now, of course, both are easily trumped by the diesels. The 2 litre TDI 110 PS unit that are driving here manages 62.7 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and puts out 128 grams per kilometre of CO2. And that'll make it a good choice for company car users. Now, those people will like even more the Blue Motion TDI that Volkswagen has developed, which manages just 99 grams per kilometre of CO2. Insurance groupings, well, they range between 4 and 15, but mainstream models are generally in the 7 to 12 bracket. The Mk6 Volkswagen Golf isn't the giant leap forward that previous generations have been, but then it didn't really need to be. The car is a thorough and far-reaching development of the previous model, retaining the highly adept chassis but making improvements in almost every other area. The revised interior and refinement reset class standards, and with its high-quality image restored, the Golf will take some beating.